Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sport Business Lab. This is our third episode, and I'm really glad. We're really picking up and doing and having some really great conversations. I hope everyone who's listening and watching are enjoying as much as we are. I can see for myself, but of course, as far as I know, and I can ask you, Amit, how are you doing? How have you been enjoying these last episodes? And really exciting for today. Very special guest as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Rafa. I'm loving it. I think the two interactions we have had have been very fruitful, very open, and I'm sure the listeners would enjoy it. About today's conversation, what I think, Rafa, is Olympics is still 2 years away, but I think we struck gold already. We struck gold with Olympic Gold Quest and
Very
Anukool
good.
joining us on the podcast. And a very warm welcome to the Chief Strategy Officer of Olympic Gold Quest, one of the most recognized organizations in India. It's a not for profit, of course. And we'll hear a lot more from Anukul himself about his journey and about the contribution that OGQ Olympic Gold Quest is making to the performance of Indian sports persons on the global stage. A very warm welcome to you, Anukul. Welcome to the podcast. We are delighted to have you and we look forward to interacting with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks, Raphael. Pleasure to be a part of this podcast. And yeah, thanks for inviting me. Really excited to chat with you all about my journey and what OGQ does as well.
Sure, wonderful. So, of course, we'll dive deeper into what OGQ does, but we will first want to understand from you what got you into sports. Have you played sports? Why sports? And like OGQ, how did OGQ happen for you?
Yeah, sure. So, my father actually was a hockey player. He played hockey at a very high level in India for Mahindras. So, in the 70s and 80s, Mahindras was one of the top five hockey clubs in the country. In fact, at any given point of time, there were 4 to 5 players in the Indian national hockey team who were playing for Mahindras. So, my dad was part of that team. So, growing up, I saw a lot of hockey sticks at home. I saw different jerseys at home. Uh, Dhanraj Pillai was my dad's teammate at Mahindra, so I grew up listening to stories of him. So it was just natural for me to pick up hockey. In fact, there's a photo of mine with the hockey stick where the hockey stick is actually taller than me. So my introduction and affinity to sport was actually very, very early on in life. Fortunately, so I studied in the school called Sacred Heart Boys High School in Santa Cruz in Mumbai. And the school also had a very good hockey team and a good hockey coach. So very, very early on, in fact, the earliest memories I have in life are playing hockey for school. Uh, so that's how I got introduced to sport. I also played football for the school, and so in general, just fell in love with sport very, very early on in life, and then that has stayed with me throughout. I was also good at academics along with sport. So when I was 16 years old, by the time I was 16, I had already represented Mumbai. I represented the state. I had a call up for the national camp also. Unfortunately, that year, due to some issues with the Hockey Federation, the junior national camp did not happen. This was around 2005. So when I finished school, I had a decision to make to pursue hockey full time or go into academics. And uh, I think it was just the times then. Growing up in a class South Indian family, think academics is always given more weightage over sport. Even though my father played for many years, I think the push I would say was to pursue academics. And I then thought that I took science because I was good at academics. I thought I will be able to manage both, but I soon realized that that was not the case. So I pursued science, I did my engineering, and while doing my engineering, actually, I realized that this is something I'm not enjoying. That's where my love for sport, I think Raphael resonates with that.
Yeah,
uh,
no, I also
yeah,
graduated electrical engineering,
I
so
think
I
sometimes you
understand completely.
need to do what you don't like to really understand what means the most to you. So that I think that was a big turning point for me while I was doing engineering. How much I love sport, how much I miss sport. I couldn't play. My playing career literally stopped when I was around 18, 19, 20. I did actually pretty okay in my engineering. I got a campus placement with Accenture through my engineering, and in fact on my very first day of training for Accenture was the light bulb moment for me, I would say. I literally felt I will not be successful at this. This thing doesn't interest me at all. And I literally quit the very next day. So I have a very long stint of 1 day in Accenture. And in fact, I quit without having any plan in mind, without having any sort of thing to fall back on, to the absolute horror of my parents, who were very happy that I got placed in an MNC. And then I started researching on what I can do when I came upon this course called sports engineering, masters in sports engineering at Sheffield Hallam University in the UK. I applied for that, got through. It was a 1 year course, probably one of the biggest learnings I've had in life in general. Of course, academics was one thing, but in general, just stepping out of home, staying in a foreign country, studying, learning sport. I really enjoyed my 1 year there. And throughout that 1 year, I was very keen that I wanted to work in Indian sport. So after the course, I had an opportunity and I was working with the England and Wales Cricket Board as part of a tie-up between the ECB and Sheffield Hallam University on a video analysis of cricket matches, again, which I really loved. I absolutely loved that. But my heart was always on working in Indian sport. So I came back immediately after and was fortunate to get an opportunity in OGQ and have been here ever since.
Fantastic. I mean, what a journey. And I think a lot of us, I think at least the three of us share this common thing where all of us have been in another industry and now getting into sports. For me also, I would love to work in sports industry in India. And I think OGQ and Indian sport is very lucky that you made this decision and you have stayed there for 10 years, right? It's been 10 years for you or more?
I'm in my 13th year currently. Soon be
Fantastic.
completing 13.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's a very long, and I see that you went directly. So that's the only place you have worked in India in sports.
Yes, yes, yes. So interesting actually. So while I was in the UK, I had written to almost 100 companies in India. I had no clue about the industry. This we are talking 2012. So the industry, I mean, there were very handful of companies who employed people in India. I was also clear I didn't want to work in cricket, although my first job was with the ACB, and we all Indians love cricket. I loved that role as well. But for some reason, maybe because I was a hockey player, I really wanted to do something in a non-cricket sport. So I had applied and it was a sports engineering course. So I had applied to a lot of the equipment manufacturers and literally every sports company I could get details from Google. I had applied to. My most preferred option was this company called Sports Mechanics. Which is based in Chennai. They used to do video analysis and they were one of the pioneers of video analysis, especially in India. Again, they started with cricket, but they used to work with hockey also. So when I was playing hockey, it was my dream to represent India and play for the country. And that didn't happen. So I thought there's a route through the video analysis route if I can be the video analyst for the Indian hockey team and through that earn the India jersey. So that was my dream then. I was not like they didn't reply back to me, so that didn't happen. While growing up, there were very few players from Mumbai who represented the Indian hockey team in those days. When we talk about the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of players. Like I said, there were 5, 6 players from the Mahindra team itself in the Indian hockey team, but that number started going down. And when I was growing up at the Athens 2004 Olympics, there were just 2 players from Mumbai in the Indian hockey team. One was goalkeeper Adrian D'Souza and one was Viren Raskina. And I used to idolize Viren because he was from Mumbai. He was playing for the Indian hockey team. So I used to idolize him and have been following his journey. And I got to know that he's CEO of this organization called OGQ. So I reached out to him and he got back to me. So I was very lucky, and it just so happened at that time there was a vacancy also which happened to arise in OGQ in the research team. So that's how I met him and I got into OGQ.
That's great. And I actually maybe you can speak a bit more like what you do in OGQ and what OGQ does, like also for our listeners, because I also then will have a question about also relating to your decision when young continue playing sports but go into academics, because I think that there's a lot to be related that as well. But first, maybe some context.
Yeah,
in
so OGQ is a not-for-profit organization, as Amit very briefly mentioned. The mission is very sharp to help Indian athletes win Olympic gold medals. I mean, we support para-athletes also now. I'll talk about that journey a bit later. But when it started in 2001 by two of India's sports legends, Geet Sethi and Prakash Padukone, it was started with a mission to help Indian athletes win Olympic gold medals. Keith Sethi, of course, is a nine-time world billiards and snooker champion. Prakash Padukone is former world number one, All England champion. Kids these days know Prakash Padukone only as Deepika Padukone's father. So Rafael Deepika Padukone is one of India's top actresses in Bollywood, but we all say
Correct.
that he himself was a great champion for India in his playing days. So they started OGQ. Vishwanathan Anand, who's one of the chess greats, is also part of our board, along with a whole host of corporate leaders. And it was started with a mission to help Indian athletes win Olympic medals. So we raise funds through donations from corporates as well as high net worth individuals, and that funding is used to support the training of the athletes. And by support, what do I mean is we try to provide the best coaches for them, be it Indian coaches or abroad. We ensure they have the best equipment. In sports like shooting and archery, equipment plays a big role where it's a sport of margins. So only when the athletes have the best possible equipment or ammunition in shooting or arrows in archery can then it be a level playing field to compete against the best in the world. We have a team of doctors, physios, nutritionists. So we give a lot of focus to the sports science aspect of it. So basically everything in the back end to help the athletes compete against the best in the world. So we work very closely with the government and the national sports federations as well. So to think of it, the government does all the heavy lifting on the hardware. So they make the stadiums, they make the infrastructure, they conduct the national camps. We sort of try to bridge the gap in terms of the software, in terms of the people working with the athletes. So that's what OGQ does. Uh, Currently, we're supporting close to 500 athletes. The breakup of that would be around 400 athletes in Olympic sport and about 100 athletes in para sport broadly. And the athletes we support in Olympics are also broken down into senior athletes who will be preparing for the most immediate Olympics, which would be the LA 2028 Olympics. And we also run a junior program where we are supporting athletes for the long term. So 2032 and 2036, which may happen in India.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, and just a few things, unless Rafa has one more question, I'll just like to mention for the listeners who may not be from India. So all these stalwarts that Anukul mentioned, they are considered to be the GOAT in their respective sports in India, like Vishwanathan Anand in chess, Geet Sethi in billiards and snooker, Prakash Padukone in badminton, even Dhanraj Pillai when he spoke in hockey. And by the way, hockey here is field hockey. So it's not ice hockey, so yeah, field hockey. Yeah, so just thought I will mention this for people who are may not be from India. So Rafa, if you have any question, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. My question is also because I mean, I'm from Brazil. I think there's definitely a lot of similarities with India and following like the sports and looking at the Olympic powers, like let's say the United States first. I think one of the biggest systems that feed athletes on their Olympic teams and so on is the college, right? So is the NCAA. So how they actually are able to not necessarily make that choice that you had to make. In a way, it was also for me. I actually used to play basketball, but in the last year of high school, my dad and us were like, okay, how can I actually, study to get into the university and also play basketball? But I always felt a bit like, well, I look at in the United States and actually the sports can be beneficial. It could be a help or like a lever for you to actually get into a good university, probably get a scholarship and so on. And all of these, even like the minor sports, looking like not American football, basketball, but even the other ones, swimming, in a way, even tennis. The college system is more and more, or at least has been a huge historical that provide these athletes for the Olympics and for like professional athletes and so on. So working with your with this organization, have you looked into that? Like, how do you see that? Like, do you looking into expanding in that direction or something? Yeah.
Yeah, no, very good question, Rafa, and I'm glad you brought it up. So, in the initial years of OGQ, a lot of research was done into studying the top countries in the world when it comes to Olympic sport. And what the team then realized was cut, copy, paste model will not work in India because of, it's a very unique country in terms of the diversity in the country, the sports culture in our country. So we had to like pick what could work from these other countries, but actually contextualize it to the Indian ecosystem then. And what they felt was they identified a focus group of 5 Olympic sports and the learning, and we also studied the medal tally of the last 3 Olympics then, and the learning was that countries who finish between 16 and 20 in the Olympic podium, that's where we felt at that time that India should ideally be in terms of the talent we had, etc. They all win 70 to 80% of their medals from just 4 or 5 sports. Although there are so many sports in the Olympics, but the countries who were finishing in that range were focusing on a few sports where they are good at and winning more medals and gold medals in those sports. So then OGQ identified the sports of shooting, archery, badminton, boxing, and wrestling. These 5 to be our focus sports where we felt India had the talent, India had the coaches, India had a good pipeline of young players coming through, and also where OGQ could make a difference to help the athletes win medals. And that thesis actually still holds true for us even today after so many years and multiple Olympic cycles. We continue to have 70 to 80% of our athletes in these 5 sports. We have also expanded to a few more sports like weightlifting, which we call outlier sports, where we support a few athletes who are really outliers, but that sport itself, we don't support the way we support some of the focus sports, which I mentioned. So the learning for us looking at other countries, we didn't really feel we could compete with the USAs and Chinas of the world in terms of the number of medals they win immediately. Hope eventually in the future we get there. So we felt we should first break into the top 20 of the world. And for that, we needed to focus on a few sports which we are really good at. So that was the thesis then.
I think that's indeed one of a very prudent way to look at things and the research that you might have done identifying those countries and how they win medals. But, as Rafa mentioned, and we also are aware that, there's no system in India like the NCAA or even there's hardly any club culture. So it's not very easy to find talent. There's no organized grassroots platform as such in India. So how does OGQ identify talent, and is it easier now compared to how it was earlier? Because I think now sports has become more acceptable amongst people, and a lot of people play a lot more sport and take chances of, opting for sports as a career rather than, academics as a career. So has it changed, and how do you identify the talent?
Yeah, so definitely it has changed, Amit. It's now much more easier to identify talent. Also now, because OGQ has been supporting athletes for so many years, athletes themselves reach out in a big way for support. And now we've over the years built a very strong network of coaches, of scouts who recommend athletes. So now it's much more easier, I would say, compared to then. I think one of the biggest successes for us and a great decision was made after the London Olympics in 2012 is to start a junior program for athletes aged 19 and below across sports. So that junior program allowed us to identify athletes at a very young age. So our research process is a combination of quantitative and qualitative aspects. So depending on the nature of the sport, we would sort of look at performances in state level tournaments, national level tournaments, compare it to global benchmarks at that age group, see the pathway, what it takes to transition from junior to senior, etc. So wherever those numbers are available in sports like shooting, archery, etc. And then the qualitative aspects as well. So speaking to people on the ground who work with the athletes, speaking to coaches on what they think of the talent. Uh, so that's how we work. So that junior program has given us a lot of success. So in the year 2000, and research pointed out that there's this badminton player who was beating players 2, 3 years older than her And the coach also suggested that she's one to look out for. So we started support to PV Sindhu when she was just 14 years old. And at that point, nobody in India knew her name. Her coach Gopichand gave a glowing sort of report on her potential for the future, and we decided to back her when she was 14. Similarly, Prakash Padukone himself spotted Lakshya Sen when he was 10 years old. Lakshya, in fact, had come to Bangalore with his brother Chirag Sen. Chirag is also a badminton player. So he had just accompanied Chirag Sen. Chirag was moving to the Prakash Padukone Academy to join the academy, and Prakash sir felt actually Lakshya has immense talent. So OGQ has been supporting him since he was 10 years old. In the sport of shooting, we identified Manu Bhakar when she was 15 years old in 2017. In wrestling, we identified Ravi Kumar and Aman Sehrawat. So the names I'm taking all went on to win, all except Lakshya went on to win Olympic medals for India. Lakshya, of course, finished fourth at the Paris Olympics. So a junior program allowed us to identify athletes at a very young age and then support them. It's a long journey to an Olympic medal. It's a 6 to 7 year journey, maybe more to an Olympic medal. So that's how we did it. Then now, of course, we have much more data, much more information. Like Amit mentioned, the industry has also grown so much. So coaches keep recommending athletes to us. Athletes themselves reach out to us. So now we have much more information.
Yeah. I think this has been a great initiative, the junior program, because we had back-to-back medalists in badminton. We had Saina Nehwal, who won an Olympic bronze, and then Sindhu came in thanks to this program. And even in shooting, like you mentioned, Lakshya Sen, unfortunately, he's still young, but we are hopeful that he will be luckier this time at the LA Olympics, and hopefully get something good for us. So yeah, I think this is a great addition. But just a follow up on this. So do you usually have some scouts out there apart from the coaches or players themselves approaching you? Like I'm sure there is a lot of talent in the rural areas which may not be aware somehow of the infrastructure or the facilities that OGQ might provide. So do you have scouts on the ground? Do you have people with different federations who help you identify so that no talent goes unnoticed?
Yeah, no, we definitely work very closely with the federations and the government. So Viren Raskina, who's our MD and CEO, is part of the Mission Olympic cell of the government of India. He's also part of the committee for the Target Olympic Podium scheme. So we work very closely with the government. In terms of scouts, so over the years we've built a very strong network and relationships of these scouts. Formally, we don't have any scouts out there. We have an internal research team who's tracking all the tournaments, who keep traveling for all the tournaments. So we also don't support athletes at a very grassroots level in terms of if they have not yet started sport or if they're still figuring out which sport to play. We come in at a level where say the athletes are at least representing the state or competing at the national level, and then try to bridge that gap, because that gap itself is so huge to bridge. So with the resources we have not really gone to a grassroots level where we are, I mean, we are slowly getting there, but I wouldn't say at scale we have got there. We are slowly piloting a project in the sport of weightlifting where we are actually going to districts where there is talent and do a set of physical tests and a battery of sports science assessments, and based on that identify weightlifters. So we're doing a program with Mirabai Chanu, who was the Tokyo Olympic silver medalist, and her coach Vijay Sharma in the sport of weightlifting. But in our focus sports, we still don't support from a grassroots level. We come in at a level where they're at least competing and training seriously, say at state, national level, and then try to bridge that gap.
Sure.
Amazing. And I actually have a question because so Olympic sports, a lot of them, the Olympics is the top competition, right? So it's the highest an athlete can go. I'm curious, like how is it in between, right? Like I think a lot of this sports as well, they don't necessarily have like very frequent competitions at the necessarily the highest level that you can get, and a lot of them in India they are still reaching that level. How does it usually work? Like do you help them like travel to where the best athletes are? Do they have like a plan, a program that they need to follow usually in this cycle? Like how does it usually work?
Yeah, so OGQ, we don't own a facility of our own. We don't have any infrastructure. We don't, our mandate is not to get into any infrastructure projects. So all the athletes we support are either training in government facilities or facilities of the Sports Authority of India, or private facilities, or say the Army Sports Institute. Army invests heavily in Indian sport as well. So they are all training in these facilities. What we provide them is the sports science support, try to identify coaches or work with the coaches already coaching these athletes. Yes, we provide a lot of logistical support as well. So, in case we feel an athlete's training base can be changed, we try to provide that. But yeah, we don't have a facility of our own, and our support is the final goal is, of course, the Olympics, but then there's a pathway. The Asian Games and Commonwealth Games are milestones. Then there are World Championships happening across sports. So those are milestones. At the junior level, there are Junior World Championships, Youth World Championships. So depending on where the athlete is in terms of this whole pathway, there would be sort of goals assigned to each of them, which is mutually decided between the coach, the athlete, and OGQ. And then slowly, step by step, we try to make that progression towards, of course, the eventual goal is, of course, the Olympics.
So, Anukul, the support that you provide to various athletes, be it international competition or physiotherapists or coaches or, technical, medical services, I am assuming that, international exposure may be something which may be consuming a lot of the resources that OGQ has. Could you tell us, like, a rough sense of where does the allocation in rough percentages go, which are the highest areas where you need to invest more, and which are the areas that India is lacking or can get better at, because of which you are having to spend more resources in those areas?
So I think the biggest spend for us is always foreign coaches wherever applicable, whether we need to get foreign coaches to India. So in a lot of our sports, we have foreign coaches working with young athletes as well as, of course, senior athletes. So that is definitely by far the biggest expense for us. Or sometimes we send athletes abroad to train, whether it's full time or in sort of pockets in wherever the tournament calendar may allow. So that would be our biggest expense. The second expense I would imagine, again, it depends on sport. So in sports like shooting and archery, equipment would be a big cost. So a rifle would sort of cost, say, 5 to 6 lakh rupees. Generally, all shooters have a backup rifle as well. And some of these things are also provided by the government if the athlete is part of some of the elite schemes. But wherever that's not happening, we sort of try to avoid any duplication. So in sports like shooting and archery, equipment would be a big expense. Then in sports like wrestling and boxing, which are very physical sports, sports science support would be a very, very big expense, where there would be a physio, SNC, a nutritionist, masseur, etc., working with the athlete, traveling with the athlete. These are very physical sports, so injury can happen anytime. So a surgery is required. So medical expenses are a lot. In sports like badminton or table tennis, racket sports, they play 15 to 17 tournaments every year. So in those sports, funding for tournaments would be the number one expense. So again, it differs on sport to sport. So depending on the nature of the sport, our support is very, very customized, individualized. We don't have like a fixed thing applied to all sports. It really depends on the nature of the sport and what the requirement is in terms of that high performance pathway. That's how we like to think of it. Yeah, sorry, Amit, was there a follow-up question to this? I missed the
Yeah,
second.
I mean, yeah, you did mention it, but
Yeah,
it
what
was,
does India need to do? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the areas India is.
Yeah, I think the number one area would be coaching. I think currently India is heavily dependent on foreign coaches. I think over the last four Olympics, I was looking at it, I think 70% of our Olympic medalists had foreign coaches who guided them for majority of their Olympic journey. I think that's a very, very high number. India is very dependent on foreign coaches, and uh, uh, post the Rio Olympics, so did we identified this and we said, instead of just talking about it, let's do something about it. So we started a OGQ coaches program in 2017 with the mission to help and develop young Indian coaches. So we started it with two sports, badminton and shooting, and currently it is expanded to four para sports as well. So para athletics, para badminton, para shooting, and para archery, where we invite foreign coaches to they don't work with the athletes, they only sort of train the trainers, they only teach the Indian coaches. And the coaches program, we have designed it to work in three pillars. So it's not just technical, it's also sports science and also leadership and communication skills. So under these three pillars, we're trying to help and develop the next rung of Indian coaches. So because we believe that only if the coach working with a talented 10, 11, 12-year-old is absolutely world class, only then they will, be able to challenge the best when they turn senior. So I think that
Absolutely.
would be the number one area of improvement for India.
Yeah, I would say it's a path, right? I think like to having coaches is people who really know the sport, who really know, and I think maybe having more and more of the athletes, the coaches at some point will come as well.
Rafa, I'm curious actually. Do they think of it the same way in Brazil? How does it work there?
It's a bit tough. I think like in Brazil, like I think also a similarity is that like football is definitely the biggest sport there. There's a lot of money. I think the infrastructure overall it is there. I think still the situation with education is still a thing.
Hmm.
So I definitely see a lot of the athletes, they kind of like they need to choose at some point, like if they wanna continue the pathway to become a professional. But for the other sports, like it's a lot from the government, the schools, and a lot of actually social projects as well that we see. But then it's a bit more spread. So but yeah, to be fully honest, I don't have like all of the information. It's more also today actually we have been discussing a little bit about Olympics and how it's like the power of making an unknown a hero, right? So sometimes it's from a sport that we don't really know, but then there's a Brazilian there, or yeah, in your case an Indian, and then they win a gold medal or a medal, and then you're like, well, who is that person? And then we want to understand about their history, like where do they train? It's a facility that is provided by the military, for example, and then they get like almost like it's not a scholarship, but just a help, a support from the institution. But then later, when then they become a hero, and sponsorships might come more heavily because, of course, we want them to continue. So I think in a lot of sense, it's a big struggle. So yeah,
No,
that's
thanks,
what I
thanks.
could
That's
say.
very, very interesting.
We had a case like this, Rafa. We had a javelin thrower in India called Neeraj Chopra. He won gold at the Tokyo Olympics and silver at the Paris Olympics. Relatively unknown figure, but now India has got, I think, 3 or 4 javelin throwers who can throw above 80 meters, I believe. So
Eight, Amit.
eight. Wow. So number is growing, popularity is growing. In fact, this session that we had on the Olympics, the discussion we were having, uh, it occurred to me that there could be something like this. OGQ. I don't know whether OGQ can directly do this, but if something like this can be done, it can be a great galvanizer for people supporting young sports persons. In the London Olympics, there was an activation done by one of the brands where they spoke to the mother of the athletes who were participating in the Olympics. So they identified some athletes who they felt could potentially win a medal at the Olympics. And they spoke to the mothers. They made kind of a short episode on the mother, the journey of the child, how the child or the family struggled to support the kid in reaching a certain level. And then that story it came on the social media, it became a rage. And when these athletes actually participated in the Olympics, the entire nation knew the story of that athlete and they supported that athlete and celebrated with that athlete and the mother. And the cameras were directing towards the mother to see the reaction of the mother. So it became a great activation thing, which can encourage individuals, sports lovers, corporates to then start supporting more such athletes. So that can be a great way of to generate more revenue for various organizations who are working in the field of sport. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
something
I
fascinating.
actually have some examples from our experience as well of what Rafa and Amit are talking about. When we started support to Saina and Sindhu, who are badminton players, Saina Nehwal and PV Sindhu, in around 2010, there were about 30 to 40 badminton courts in Bangalore and Hyderabad, respectively. And today, anecdotal evidence suggests that there are close to 5,000 badminton courts in each of these cities. So, just the power of two young girls going on to win Olympic medals for India inspires a generation of athletes. So, similarly, in the sport of weightlifting, where Mirabai Chanu won the silver medal at the Tokyo Olympics, the national championship after that Olympics in weightlifting saw a threefold increase in participation of young girls. especially from the northeast of India, where Mirabai Chanu hails from. And Amit mentioned the example of Neeraj Chopra as well. So after Neeraj Chopra winning the Olympic medal, there were 8 throwers who have thrown 80 meters at least once. So it just takes that one athlete to inspire a million athletes, million young athletes.
Yeah,
Totally.
for sure. Actually, I just wanted to circle back on something you mentioned also about the spend in racket sports. That you mentioned that it's in tournaments, but what is it? Is it in registration or traveling for the tournaments? Yeah,
Yeah,
what
no,
would it
so
be?
so mainly for travel and accommodation, that is the most important thing. And also, it's not just the athlete. There would be, say, a coach who's traveling, a
Coach.
physiotherapist who's traveling. This funding would be a combination of the government funding and organizations like OGQ funding it, and then they play 15 to 18 tournaments a year. So you can just add up all those
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah. And has OGQ ever created their own tournament for something? Like, how is it? Like, is there any events that you support, or it's just usually things that are out there and then you help them get there?
Yeah, we don't organize or sponsor a competition. Our mandate is to focus on the training and preparation for the competition. So athletes would compete in competitions. So in India, there would be, say, for example, badminton, there would be all India competitions, there would be the national championship. And then abroad, of course, there's a proper structure of tournaments. So which we don't organize a tournament of our own.
So, Anukul, at the scale at which you all operate, like, 500 athletes to support athletes and para athletes, I'm sure OGQ needs a lot of funding as well. And CSR, as you mentioned, is one of the big contributors to the funds that OGQ has. So, what kind of pitch do you normally make to these organizations to encourage them to support OGQ and the athletes?
Yeah, CSR has been a game changer when training promotion of Olympic and Paralympic sport became a part of the CSR mandate around 2015. That's when our funding also exponentially started increasing. Up to about 65 to 70% of our current funding is through CSR. We have about 150 companies supporting us through CSR. Again, a very good question, Amit, and this is one of our biggest challenges as well, because in a country like India, there are so many different things which need to get better, and CSR funding will go towards that, and absolutely rightly so. Whether it's sanitation, it's education for young girls, or whether it's cleanliness. There are so many, just alleviating poverty. There are so many causes which are more pressing, and sport generally doesn't come in any of the priorities for CSR in India. Having said that, there are a lot of companies who understand the power of sport, right? Which we were talking about earlier, the pride which comes to a country. There are so many UN sustainable goals which can be achieved at either directly or indirectly through sport, health, fitness, supporting female athletes, supporting athletes from marginalized communities. So these are some of the things which we use, which can be achieved through sport, and that's generally what we request support for. But I think increasingly companies do understand the power of sport and what it can do to build the pride of the nation. So in fact, our tagline is, it takes just 6 grams of gold to lift the worth of a nation. So 6 grams is the weight of gold in an Olympic gold medal, and we truly believe in that. That there's great power in sport. And in fact, just to give you a sense, we support para athletes. We've been supporting para athletes since 2019, and at the Paris Paralympics, India won a total of 29 medals, which was India's best ever performance. Finished top 20 in the world. And 25 of those 29 medal winners, the training was looked after by OGQ. And post the Paralympics, from the awards which the athlete got from the central or respective state governments, all of them have either built the first home for the family or done up the existing places where they were staying. And a lot of these athletes are very young athletes, mind you, as young as even 17, 18 years old. And again, 99% of our athletes come from very, very rural backgrounds. They don't come from the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, metro cities of the country. They come from very rural backgrounds. So for these athletes, through sport, to sort of literally lift their families out of modest backgrounds, I think that is truly something which we are very, very proud of. In addition to the inspiration, when a Sheetal Devi, who's an armless archer, wins a Paralympic medal, it just inspires so many people in the country. So that's our pitch generally for when we request for CSR support.
Yeah, totally, totally. I think the stories can be really very inspiring. Although I'm not too sure about the kind of infrastructure available or the path available for para athletes in India. I'm sure that is improving as well, is it?
Yeah, definitely improving, Amit. At OGQ, we all believe it's a function of performance. When there is performance, we spoke about it a bit. Rafael alluded to this. There is eyeballs because now, so India at the Rio Olympics in Brazil, in fact, we won 4 medals. And from 2016, 4 medals to 29 medals in 2024 in a span of 8 years. The para ecosystem in the country is really booming. At the Rio 2016 Paralympics, we had the first ever female Paralympic medalist for India. Her name is Deepa Malik. Up to now at Paris, there were 11 female Paralympic medalists for India. So it's definitely changing because of the performances. The support is good. We are in the right direction, although I mean the progress is slow. I mean it needs to happen at a much faster pace. Eyeballs are increasing, the general willingness to support is increasing either through CSR or in general. But if it has actually translated to say better accessibility in roads or in buildings in India, I feel that there's a long way to go.
No, I'm sure, every small step leads to where we need to go. And I think we have already made significant strides. You mentioned the number of medals we won at Rio and now at Paris. It's a fourfold, fivefold increase already. So
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. I mean, what will make you Anukool happy or OGQ happy? How many? I know you don't look at medals as a way of success only, but if we were to look at, how many medals India should win or could win, what is the number that will make you happy in the Olympics or the Paralympics next time?
Yeah, so I think at the LA Olympics, India must touch double digit figures. That's been the dream for the last 2, 3 Olympics, and we are increasingly getting closer, but we are not able to cross the line. For example, at Paris, we had 6th, 4th place finishes. Even if half of them would have converted to a medal, we would have probably reached 10. So reaching 10, the double digit medal tally, I think at LA is something which is important for the country, and of course we need to win at least 2 gold medals, I would say, and it's very much possible, especially now with the inclusion of cricket at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that would be for the Olympics. For the Paralympics, I think we have to improve on the medal tally from Paris. So at the Tokyo Paralympics, we came into the top 25 in the medal tally. At Paris, we came into the top 20, where we finished 18. So I think a top 15 finish at the LA Paralympics, for which you need to win approximately 10 gold medals. I think that would be something which we should aim for.
Okay. Fingers crossed. I
Yeah.
think I'd love to see a day where India and Brazil play the football and the cricket finals at the Olympics.
Actually, well,
Yeah.
the final, I think for both will be. I mean, who knows? In a bit down the road. But I was gonna
It's been
actually
a while since Brazil had played the football finals themselves, so in
actually
India reaching it, a long way to go.
the men's final for football. I mean, Brazil in Olympics with football is not a very successful history for sure. Actually, we won the first gold medal in Rio 2016. We managed to win again in Tokyo, so we won twice in a row. And the last one, we didn't even qualify to Paris, so we didn't go.
If I
But
can, I have a very memorable story of this actually. When Brazil was playing the Olympic final in 2016, I was fortunate enough to be in Rio, and I was, along with a few of our colleagues, were traveling from one venue to the other, and we were following the match on the radio. I think it went to the penalty shootout.
yeah,
And we were listening to the commentary, and just to see the passion for football in Brazil, and our driver was absolutely going bonkers with each penalty that Brazil was taking, and I think Neymar scored the winning goal, and
yes.
just that moment
I
was a very
think
special moment for me.
that's very nice to hear. I think the just briefly, I think the story of that final. I mean, I think we carried a lot because like I think everyone expects Brazil to be successful in football, but we never won a gold medal. 2 years before, we hosted the World Cup and we lost the memorable 7-1 against Germany at home. And that final that you're mentioning was against Germany at home, and we won. So I think even though it doesn't have the same weight, it'll never erase the 7-1. I think at that moment, it was just, like a lift, a heavy load that just, okay, we're not that disgraceful, we still have hope in the sport. But it's just, I mean, also to add, like, to the goals of India in the Olympics and so on. I always felt a bit like, okay, we won football, but even though there's, more than 11 players, because also the reserves, it's just one gold medal. And then when you look at other sports, it's like so many medals in individual sports. So yeah, but anyway, it's still definitely like a great feeling when the sports that you're known for, you reach that level. So
Surely,
yeah.
surely. Yeah.
Yeah. And one quick question. I mean, you mentioned like Rio, how the feeling was. Maybe if you can share a little bit about how was your experience in Rio as well. And for the Olympics, which one was your favorite and why?
Yeah, so Rio was not very good. India performed extremely badly in Rio. We were going in with a lot of hopes because we were coming on the back of London Olympics, which was the most successful Olympics then, where India won 6 medals. 4 out of the 6 were athletes supported by OGQ. So going into the Rio Olympics, we were hoping for improvement. We had a good preparation. Unfortunately, I think a combination of multiple factors. Some of our athletes got injured very close to the Olympics. Pressure is, of course, a thing always there, which where we struggle and we can get definitely better to handle the pressure. So India won just 2 medals. And it was a very very disappointing, actually. One of the toughest times of my professional career at OGQ was actually the Rio Olympics. But it was also, in hindsight, a blessing in disguise. Maybe we needed to look deeper into some of those things. So in the cycle between Rio and Tokyo, we actually, some of the programs I mentioned to you, we went very deep into the junior program after Rio. We started our coaches program after the Rio Olympics. We started our para program after the Rio Olympics. So a lot of these things happened on the back of that disappointment. In terms of the most memorable, it has to be Paris, because I was there for the Paralympics, and the number of moments I got to experience, just working with the athletes, being with them on that journey every single day, and to then see them perform and win a gold medal for the country. So if I can share one of my most I shared 2 moments. One was in para badminton, where we support a player named Nitish Kumar. He is an IITian. So IIT is the most prestigious engineering institute in the country. So he's an IITian. He unfortunately lost a part of his leg in a train accident, and he started learning badminton when he was at IIT. So we've been supporting him. Paris Paralympics, in the final, he was playing player Daniel Bethel from England, whom he had lost to 8 times previously. So in their head to head, he had never beaten Daniel Bethel. And he was match point down in the third game, 21-20, and he managed to turn it around and won the match 23-21, and the gold medal for India. So that was a very, very memorable moment. And then the other one I had mentioned about Sheetal Devi, 17-year-old armless archer, first female armless archer in the world to compete at the Paralympics. So she went on to win a bronze medal in the mixed team compound open category, and just to see the journey to be in that moment where she won, and to sort of go into a bit of a flashback on what it takes to get an athlete there. I think it was very memorable.
And there's a video of Sheetal Devi, right? I think that went viral, which I think we can post here in the podcast as well. It's so inspiring. I mean, I had tears in my eyes when I saw that video. Armless archer. Can you even imagine? And I mean, talking of tears, I'm sure, Anukul, you have experienced a lot of tears of joy and tears of sorrow
Yeah,
when you have been at the Olympics. I mean, listening to the national anthem playing at the Olympics, I mean, there cannot be a bigger pride than that, right? So, is there
absolutely.
a moment that you remember the most out of all the Olympics that you may have witnessed?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them actually. Although Rio was a big disappointment, there were a lot of tears of sorrow in Rio. I think being there for Sindhu's matches in the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final. Final, of course, she narrowly lost out. I think that was very memorable. It was the first experience for me. I was not there at the time of the lunch, so that was the first experience of experiencing athlete. You've had a very small part to play in the journey to to see her on the Olympic podium was special. Seeing Manu Bhaker win, although I was not there in person, Manu Bhaker was an athlete I identified as part of the research team in 2017. So to see her win 2 medals for India was very, very special. And of course, at the Paralympics, multiple moments. Each of the 5 gold medals which athletes supported by OGQ won at Paris was very special. And just to listen to the national anthem, it ended actually very well. So Navdeep Singh, one of our javelin throwers, so he competes in the short stature category, in the F41 javelin category. He was one of the first para athletes we started support to. He finished 4th at the Tokyo Paralympics. He finished 4th at the Para Asian Games in 2023. He finished 4th at the Para Athletics World Championships in the lead up to the Paralympics. And finally, on the final day of the Paris Paralympics, he threw his personal best thrice and went on to win the gold medal for the country.
Awesome.
And we were there when the national anthem played. So that was very, very, very special.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I think those are
Amazing.
the memories that you cherish.
Yeah, no, very, very lucky to be part of OGQ and to experience these journeys and of course, which sometimes culminates into medals, sometimes they do not. The result is of course out of our control, but just to be part of these journeys and it's absolutely a dream for me, and never hated a Monday morning in all the 13 years.
I wish we could say that pretty soon.
Great. I think we're also reaching the end. Been here for almost 1 hour. So first of all, like thank you so much, Anukool, again for your time, for your words, your knowledge. It was extremely valuable. I really enjoyed your time. So I think before we leave, I think as we mentioned, a lot of the people that we see as our listeners as well are people going into the sports industry. We have a lot of colleagues who are interested in that. So if you have maybe like final an advice that you would like to give to somebody who wants to work with sports, or who are also maybe struggling with this doubt that we also did, to move away from a career to another and transition into it. Yeah, what could you say to them?
Yeah, I will say it from the Indian context. That's what I have been witness to. I think there's there's a lot of demand in terms of interest, to work in sport, and it seems to be very, very glamorous, and you dream about these moments, some of which I shared about. But I think it's very important to understand, especially in the early years, it's going to be anything but glamorous. So there needs to be a willingness to really work hard, be patient, be humble. I think relationships are a key. And again, I'm talking about Indian sport. Relationships are the key to everything. So in the formative years, the focus should be really on building strong relationships, and just being very patient and working hard, sometimes doing the unglamorous things, and then hopefully a career can be built. If an individual works hard for long enough, I'm sure good things can then happen. But I think a lot of people come in with a lot of expectation that from day one, it's they're going to, like, say, work with all the top athletes, and they're going to travel with them, they're going to be at the best stadiums in the world. I think that doesn't happen so fast. I think you really need to grind it out in the initial years. That's been one big learning for me.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Thanks a lot, Anukool. I think you shared some great insights, and we wish you and Olympic Gold Quest and all the athletes all the very, very best. Best preparations for the next 2 years, and I hope we reach double figures, and God willing, in the next few years, maybe in the top 10, top 20 in the Olympics as well, with the kind of work that OGQ is doing. I'm sure that maybe still not that close, but someday we'll get there. All the best to you all. Thank you once again for taking out the time, and we look forward to more efforts and medals that OGQ gets, laurels that OGQ gets for our country.
Yeah, no, thanks, Amit. Thanks, Rafa. Wonderful talking to you all over the past 1 hour. I really enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully it's of value to someone out there. Nonetheless, thanks for having me over, and all the best to you all as well for the remaining few months of the course and to the future endeavors, whatever you all pursue after that. So yeah, thanks once again.
Thank you very much. So yeah, that was it for our third episode. Stay tuned. We're gonna be posting more and more, a lot of content, and Yeah. Bye bye. See you all soon.